Muted.
So we'll get started here with our user training. Um, when we set up our users to be able to use the product, our intention is to have them access it through the web portal. It's very streamlined for the user. It makes it very easy to train them on. And it's also available anywhere that the user has internet access. So they're not restricted to where they can get to this information. In addition to web page, we also have recently released our mobile apps. Android has been out for a little while. iPhone just recently was released to the Apple Store. So a lot of the things that we look at today on the web, you can also do on your mobile apps. Okay, so the screen that I have up is the new login page for the web. Yours may not look like this quite yet, and that's okay. This is our new version that we've been working on, that we are on the verge of releasing. You'll be hearing about that soon through a blast email about getting your version updated to the latest and greatest. So this is our login screen. We have the area on the left where we can enter our username and password. Over on the right here is an area where we can share messages with our clients. The one that we have right now is a reminder about our upcoming user conference scheduled for September. This is a link. You can click on it. This will take this opportunity to recommend to everybody that they sign up and come out to our user conference. It's going to be held in Harrah's in Atlantic City. There'll be a number of topics covered. There are a number of guest speakers that are scheduled to be coming. And I also mentioned it because we are coming to the end of the initial sign-up period, and after the 31st, there will be an increase in price. So if you're considering coming, I'd advise you to contact Jen or go online to register and get yourself paid in full by January 31st to get the best pricing on that. And if it asks, referred you to the conference, please put my name, Rob, in the space there. So you can get more information at that at the email address. I'm sure you've received emails about it. The web address, solutionexchange.com. If you need more information, feel free to email me. Again, on the left-hand side is where we're going to be entering our username and password. So the employee comes in, enters whatever their username is, followed by their password. And we'll be able to click Login. And that will get us into the main portion of our website. This probably also looks a little different than the one that you may be used to. We did have a pretty big change in the way that this information is displayed. You'll notice that we've kind of taken it in a direction to look more like the desktop application. Okay, so first thing that we'll cover are the different schedule view options that we have on the web. So we have a whole menu here for view schedule. And when we click on this, it populates a sidebar with our different options. Okay, first one we're going to look at is daily schedule. And you can see that we're already on that schedule. Our daily schedule consists of up to 6 blocks, 3 across and the top and 3 across the bottom. I do have the option, if I'm not using the sidebar, to minimize it by clicking the little 3 lines there. That'll hide that sidebar and let me just focus on my screen here. Each of our blocks represents a different shift. So we have shifts called Squad 1, Squad 2, Squad 3, Squad 4, Squad 5, and Detective Bureau. Within each box, we see a list of names of people that are scheduled to be working that day in that shift. To the left, we have an area where we can see any job assignment that has been assigned to that person. And to the right, there's a section for details, and this could show a handful of different items. It could show if somebody had a day off that day. It could show if they were working overtime. And it could also show if somebody was assigned to certain other schedule details, maybe cars or radars or tasers. And finally, if there was a comment added to the schedule next to someone's name, that would appear in this area here as well. Up here, we have our scheduled dates. We default to the current day's date. We have some buttons here. We can change the date. These single buttons, single arrows, will go ahead a day and back a day. The double arrows will go ahead a week and back a week. The Today button will always bring you back to the current day's date. And this is a drop-down calendar here. I can use this to jump to any day that I want to view. This drop-down here lets me choose from other views. So I'm set up on that patrol one currently by default, but I could choose a different one if I needed to, and I could view the schedule there. You'll notice that if we don't have a block below one of the top blocks, it just expands to take up that whole area there. Over here, we have the ability to change pages. So in our patrol view, we might have some other pages with other shifts on them. And if we do, we'll see this button here that I can click, an arrow to turn the page. Here's our administration and our AM and PM crossing guard shifts. I can use those arrows to go back and forth, or the home button will always bring me back to the first page of that view. Okay. So that's our daily schedule. We also have a single shift view, which is just like our daily schedule, except that it's kind of zoomed in or focused on a certain shift. Okay. If I'm in the daily schedule, I can also click on someone in a shift, and that will zoom in on that shift into the single shift view. And I may have some additional options here of things that I can do. Next one I'll show you is the weekly schedule. This lets me view the schedule by squad or group for 1 week at a time. So in this case here, I'm part of Platoon B, Squad 1, and I can see the schedule for that group for a week at a time. Now, depending on your security settings, you may be able to see more or less people, right? Some departments may limit me to only being able to see myself, like this is set up right now. But I could also be able to see other people in these views here. I could see all the people in my squad if I was allowed to. And I can see when people are working, when they're off. Time off and overtime entries will populate on here as well. If I have the proper permissions, I can choose from the group dropdown, and I can look at a different group as well. Again, in this case, I don't have permissions to, but if you allow that, you would be able to see those. And the week that we view is based on this date here. Whatever week this date falls in, that's the week that we'll be viewing the schedule for. So if I want to look at next week, I just pick any day next week. And that will load up that schedule for us. For some reason not being able to click on this right here, but normally you would be able to use that to change the date there. And we have a monthly schedule that works in a very similar fashion. So this is, once again, based by group. So I'm part of the Platoon B Squad 1 group. Here's my schedule for the month. Again, depending on my security, I may be able to see more people in here or less. And I can view when someone's working, when they're off. My time off entries will show on here as well. Okay. So those are our daily, weekly, and monthly schedule views. Now we also have some calendar views, which let me see just one person at a time. So monthly calendar lets me see my calendar for a month, in this case January. I can see when I'm scheduled to work, when I'm off. My time off and my overtime will show on here. I can use these arrows to go ahead a month or back a month. This will bring me back to the current month. And this drop down will let me choose another month to jump to. So if I wanted to look at the summer, I just pick a month there, and we'll go right to that schedule. Again, depending on security, you may be able to choose other people and view their monthly calendar, or you may just be limited to your own. That's a security choice. The last view that we have here is the yearly calendar. And this lets me see my calendar for the current year. Again, I can see when I'm working, I can see when I'm off. My time off and overtime entries will show as well. Okay. So those are the options that we have on the web to view the schedule. And these are the things that we would normally give to our user to be able to look at. Okay. I'll go ahead and unmute the mics. Mics are live. Does anybody have any questions about any of the view schedule options that we have on the web? Okay. I'll go ahead and I'll mute the microphones. And we'll continue on. The next thing I want to show you are the options that we'll have under the employee menu. Okay, there are a couple of options here that we have. The first couple I'm going to show you are some things that the employee may use like the first time that they log into the system. And the first one being change password. Okay. If we have a brand new employee, we can give them a default password and require them to change it when they go in. Or they can go in on their own and change it if they ever feel that they would like to set a new password. So under Employee and Actions, we have Change Password. And this is kind of a very standard change password screen. I enter my current password once, and I enter my new password twice. Your department has the option to turn on these enforced rules. So if they're not turned on, then my password can be whatever I want it to be. But if we turn those on, then the system will check to make sure that my password is a minimum of 8 characters and has at least one uppercase letter, at least one lowercase letter, and at least one special character. Okay, once I have this set, I'll go down here and I'll hit Submit. And as long as my new password matches here, and as long as if the rules are turned on, it meets those requirements, I'll get the message that your new password has been saved. Okay. The system does not require the employee to change the password every month or 2 months and so on. So once they set it initially, the only time they'll have to use this screen is if they decide to change their password. The next screen I'll show you is Set Homepage. Every time you log into the web, it's going to go to a homepage that you can select here. So what's the first page that I want to see each time I log into the web? And this is simply a drop-down. And I can choose the screen that I want to be my homepage. I'll go with Daily Schedule. And then all I have to do is click Save. And that will save my selection. So next time I log in, we'll go directly to that page. This is something, once again, that an employee can change whenever they like. So if they begin using the system and they realize there's a certain screen that would be a better choice for their home screen, they can go in and change it whenever they like. Okay, next thing that I'll show you is personnel information. And this is a screen that we can give employees access to, where they can edit or update their contact information. Okay, so I can go in, I can update my address. I can update my contact numbers. This is very important if I'm a department that makes phone calls for overtime. We want to make sure that the phone numbers are accurate. I can also update my email address, which is important as well because the system sends out a number of different emails. We want to make sure that I get it at the best possible email address. If we're doing a text message address, we can update that here. So if my phone number changes or my carrier changes, I can go in and change my text message address. If you're using PARS, there's some features here for that. And then at the bottom, it also allows me to update my emergency contact information. Okay. If I want to make any changes here, I do have to make sure that all the items labeled in red have something in those fields. Those are the required fields. Everything else is optional. And once I've made my changes, I can come down here and click Save. And that will let us know that the information has been saved. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the microphones. Does anybody have any questions about those like housekeeping items, changing passwords, setting home page, or updating your personnel information?
Yes. Are you able to request an email should an employee change their information?
It does not generate an email. It just updates the information.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions about those screens? Okay, I'll mute the microphones again and we'll continue on. Okay, next screen that I would like to show you is how we can request time off. Okay, so this screen can be found in the employee menu. I can also get to it if I look at the schedule and I click on my name. I can do request time off from there as well. Okay, either way will get me to that same request time off screen. Okay, before we go through putting in an entry, we have a couple of items we can look at here. If I click Show Balances, I can look at the balances that I have in my various banks. And if I click Show Time Off, I can see any time off entries that I have in the system. Okay. So those are just a few pieces of information that may be helpful for me to check out before I start filling out my request. Next thing we'll do is we'll start entering the information. So we have my name here, and the next thing I do is I pick a date or date range that I want to take off. Okay, if I want to put in for just one day, I leave these dates matching, or I can put in for a date range. The system knows when you're working and when you're not working. So if my date range includes my regular days off, that's okay. The system will just ignore those regular days off and only put you off on the days that you work. So if I'm off Saturday and Sunday, and I want to take off Friday and Monday, I can set my date range from Friday to Monday, and the system will ignore Saturday, Sunday, only put time off entries on for Friday and Monday. Okay, next thing I have here is my shift selection. Now, I can use this to choose what shifts I want off. Now, all shifts is fine if I only work one shift or I want to take the days off regardless of what shifts I'm working, that's great. But we do have the option to specify certain shifts. Let's say that if I was a department that I worked 2 shifts in a day sometimes, I may only want to put in for off on one of those shifts, and that's where that would come in handy. Or if I have a schedule that rotates between nights and days, and I want to put it in for a range of days, but I only want to take off on the day shifts. So I might put it for a range of a week. There might be some day and some night in there. I can specify just put me off on the days in that date range, not the nights. So those options are available there, but the default option is all shifts. So if I know that I only work one shift or I want to take off every shift in that date range there regardless, I can use that option. Next item we have here is part of day. If I'm taking the entire day off, then I can leave that. Otherwise, I can choose if I'm taking a partial day, is it going to be the first part of my day or the second part of my day? So I'll put this in for the whole day. And then I can choose my reason. What type of time do I want to take off? I'll put in for comp time. As a status, my only option as a user is requested. Down below that, we have an option for reason text. It's not a required field, but I can put a note in there if I want about why I'm taking time off. There's also a section here for advanced options that I can open up. If I need to use any of these advanced options, not everyone uses these things. If I needed to clear assignments, clear jobs, if I needed to apply to a sick event. By default, your time off entries are always going to have this checkbox marked to send email to defaults. So it's always going to send your email out in the background when you click save. If I needed to see that email screen or make a change to it or adjust who it was going to go to, I want to uncheck this box before I hit save. Otherwise, the default will always be to send emails to the people who have been identified in the system as the supervisors for my group. Okay, so after I've entered these main items here, I can come down to the bottom and click Save. Okay. We can close out of that screen there. We get a warning here that says the employee does not have enough time. Are you sure you want to continue? So for our example here, I'll click yes, I want to continue. I do have the option to cancel and maybe go back and request a different type of time or something. Now I got a message up here that I'm not allowed to go that far back. Since this shift has already started, I can't put that request in. I'll just change this to tomorrow real quick. And not working tomorrow. We'll do Monday. There we go. So Monday we'll put in for the day off. We'll click Save. I may just have to fix that in my security. Just give me 1 second. There we go. So when your request goes through successfully, you'll get the message here that your request has been saved. You'll get the message here, time off successfully saved as well. And if we go to our schedule views, you can see that start to populate. Here I have a comp day that's requested. And the same thing on our different views as well, weekly, monthly, and my calendars. Okay, so that's how I can enter a request for time off. Okay, so I have a question that came through on the chat. On the current version of the web portal that most everybody here probably has, there are fields for hours that allow employees to alter the times on their request. That still exists. What happens is if we are putting in for a day off, if we're putting in for the whole day, it leaves those fields hidden. But if we put in for a partial day, those fields pop up. So they are still there. They just only show if you're putting in for a partial day, first part or second part of the day. The question continues that employees whose shifts are scheduled for 8.5 hours because they get a 30-minute unpaid lunch. When they are requesting time off, should the total number of hours be shown be 8.5 because the unpaid lunch is deducted on the back end? Yes, initially, when you load that up, it's going to show in the total number of hours as 8.5 because it does not figure out if that person gets unpaid lunch or not until it processes the entry. That's when it checks their profile to see if they have any amount of unpaid lunch. So initially, yes, you will see that as 8.5, but once it processes, it will know to not count the half hour and only charge the employee for 8. Okay. I will actually go ahead and unmute the microphones. If anyone else has any questions on entering a time off entry, requesting time off, the microphones are live. You can go ahead and ask. Okay, I'll mute the microphones again. Okay, so that is how we would request time off. The next item that I would like to cover with you is requesting overtime. So under the employee menu, I have an option here for request overtime. And our screen here is somewhat similar to requesting time off. Before I start filling it out, I can pay attention, or I can take a look over here. I have an option for show overtime. And if I click that, that'll show me any other overtimes that I have in the system. So I can get information about them. And if I want to go ahead and fill this slip out, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to pay attention to those items labeled in red there. This screen is usually used for unplanned or unexpected overtime. So this is usually things like a late call at the end of my shift, or maybe I had to go to court and I wanted to put in for my court time. Most departments have another method for doing scheduled or planned overtime, using something like open shifts or the replacement policy, things like that. So that stuff is usually scheduled ahead of time, and we already have that in the system. This is only for people that need to enter something that was not already scheduled. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to choose the date of my overtime. So let's say that maybe I had to stay after my shift on the 27th. So choose my date, and then I choose the shift that I worked overtime. Whoops, just give me 1 second to make a quick adjustment to my security there. There we go. So I choose my date of my overtime, and I choose the shift that I worked overtime. So it was squad 1. And then the reason. Here are all my overtime reasons. Okay, let's say I had to work late. Then I choose my pay type, whatever options are available for this overtime reason. In this case, my choices are cash or comp. And then I have my start and end time. These default to the shift hours there, but in this case, I didn't work the whole shift overtime. I just stayed a little bit late. So I can go in and change this to 18 to 19. Okay, and we'll blank that out there and have the system auto-calculate those hours for me. Again, as a user, my only option is request. And I have a spot down here in reason text where I can put information about why I had overtime. After that, we have some advanced options. If I want to pick a job or location that I was at when I had this overtime, if I want to enter a CFS or reference number, I also have the option here to print receipt. Okay, if I need any of those, I can enter them in. Otherwise, I can go ahead and click Save. Seem to be having an issue with my security here where it's not letting me submit this. But clicking Save, that would put your entry through, and it would send your emails to your default recipients for your group. And of course, that would also begin to populate your schedule. You'd see it on your daily and your different calendar views as well. With time off and with overtime, I do have the option to go into show overtime and click an entry here if I wanted to load that information up and review it. In this case, this has been approved already, so I can't make any changes to it, but if it hadn't been approved, it changes, or I could delete that entry. Also lets me see my date and timestamps as well, you know, when this was approved and by who. Okay, we'll go ahead and unmute the mics here. So microphones are live if anybody has any questions about entering an overtime entry. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll go ahead and mute the microphone. The next item we'll look at is under the employee zone as well. And this is where we can go to request a switch. Okay, so I can go in here and I can request either a switch or a substitution with another employee. Okay, and the way this would work is I would have my name, the date that I'm scheduled to work, and the shift. And over here, I would choose who I want to switch with. Okay. When we are trying to process a switch, the system is going to look at a couple of items. It's going to check to make sure that the people that are part of that switch have at least one skill set in common with each other. And that is to help prevent things like somebody from like a sergeant switching with a patrol officer. If that's not allowed, we can prevent that in by using their skill sets. The other thing it's going to check is you have the ability to set a limit on how far apart two parts of a switch can be. So you might say it's got to be within 14 days or 30 days. So that way, you know, it can't be, I'm going to work for you today and you're going to work for me in November. You can limit that using a setting in the main program. Okay, but otherwise I can go in here, I can select somebody to switch with. I can choose the date that they're working. And then I click update here, and that will check to see if they have a shift that day. And then I would be able to click request to submit that request. So I already have time off that day, so I can't do that switch. Let's try this and sometimes it's hard to find somebody without knowing the actual schedules. If I'm an employee, this is usually an easier, because I know the people who are working and who are not. So something along those lines there, and I would hit the request button. Okay, again, it's warning me that the employee does not have matching skill sets. So it's checking these things. It's making sure that the people aren't working on the day that they're trying to switch to, and it's checking for those skill sets as well. When we submit a request, once it goes through, you will get a notification in red right down here that the request has been submitted. And both parties of the switch will receive an email notifying them that they are part of a switch. It also notifies the supervisors of both employees as well, so that way someone can go in and approve or deny that switch. The substitute section works the same way, except that this is for open-ended switches. So with a switch, we have both people and the dates that they're supposed to work, and then they're going to switch with each other. A substitute would say that I'm working today, and somebody's going to work for me. Now, when am I going to work for him? That's still up in the air. We're going to settle that between us. We'll take care of that later. But this is an open-ended form of a switch. We call it a substitution. When I fill out a substitution, I do have to enter the start and end time that we're switching. So if it's the whole shift, that's fine. You can enter that. But it's also possible to do a partial here to say that I'm going to work for this person for a couple of hours. I'm going to cover part of their shift. Just like with a switch, I come down here and I click the request button. When I do that, it's going to notify both members of this substitution that they are part of that. And it's also going to notify the supervisors of both those employees so someone can go in and approve that substitution. Okay. I'll go ahead, I'll unmute the mics. Does anybody have any questions about requesting a switch or requesting a substitution? Okay. If nobody has any questions, I'll go ahead and mute the microphones again. The next item that we're going to start looking at is how do we sign up for open shifts? And that can be found here under the employee section again. And there's an option here for open shifts. Okay, so if we have shifts that have been posted for people to sign up for, this is the screen that they can go to sign up for them. What we get here is a calendar type view showing us 1 month at a time. Up here we can see the month that we're viewing. We can see arrows to go ahead a month or back a month. In the calendar itself, I see these blue items here, and they say not available. And that means that there is nothing, no open shifts for me to sign up for. Now, that can mean a couple of things. That can mean that either there's just none posted at all, which is why I can't see any of them, or there could be shifts posted that maybe I can't sign up for because I'm already scheduled to work during that open shift, during that overtime. So I would not be able to see that. And then finally, they could be posted, they could be available, but I might just not be the right person for that shift. I might not have the right skill to sign up for it. And if that's the case, it will show not available either. If there was something that I was able to sign up for, that would be highlighted in green, and it would say available. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and place one in here that I can show you. There we go. So I have a handful of them in here. We see available. And if I'm interested in that overtime, I can click And that gives me a week breakdown down here. I can look at the next week and I can see what's available there as well. So here's an example of a day where we have more than one open shift. We have one for the Squad 1 shift. We have one for the traffic safety unit. I can hover over them to get a little more information, and I can click on them, and that'll give me that information up here. So the date, the shift, the actual times of the overtime, and the group that I'm a part of that allows me to sign up for it. And there's a section here for posts. If there was a post selected when this job was, or this open shift was created, I'd be able to see that there as well. In this case, there is not. Once I've clicked on it, if I am interested in working it and I want to put my name on the list, I can go ahead and click Save. And that gets added to this list down here of open shifts that I've signed up for. I can see the date, the shift, the start time, the end time, the number of hours, the status, and the date that I signed up for. And depending on how your department operates, there are two options for open shifts. Either A, the person's name goes on a list like it did here, and then someone will go in and assign or award those open shifts when they're ready to choose the person who's going to work them. Or there's an option to auto award these open shifts in like a first come, first serve basis. So if that's turned on and I go in and I sign up for the shift, as long as it's still available and no one beat me to it, it would immediately show this as awarded, and the award date would be pretty much the same as the request date. Once I sign up for an open shift, that shift no longer shows up here because I can't sign up for it twice. Okay. Any questions about open shifts? I'll go ahead and unmute the mics. Microphones are live. Does anybody have any questions about how to sign up for an open shift? Yes, I see a question from Mike. Mike Lauber, your mic is live if you have a question. Okay, Mike says he has a question about the way that open shifts are created. Mike, we wouldn't really be covering the creation of open shifts on this session because it's more user-oriented. That'll be covered this afternoon in the supervisor session. But with that being said, if we get to the end of the session today and we have some time and we get through all questions about user stuff, I'd be glad to go ahead and go over it with you anyway at the end of the session. Okay. Any other questions on signing up for an open shift? Okay, I'll go ahead and mute the microphones again. The last item here under this employee menu that we have set up is time sellback. So if your department allows employees to go in and sell back time out of their banks, we can give them access to this screen. And this will allow them to go in, see the different types of time that they have and how much they have in their bank, and then enter an amount that they want to sell back. Now, my balances are at 0, so I won't really be able to process anything because the system will not let me sell back into the negative. But if I did want to sell something back, it's as easy as going in here, entering the amount of hours that I want to sell back, and clicking the Save button down at the bottom. That can be used, like I said, by departments that allow people to sell time out of their banks back. You do have the ability to limit which types of banks can be sold back. So for example, we see the list that I have here, but let's say that I wasn't allowed to sell back from my disability bank. We do have the ability to prevent people from selling back from certain banks. And once that sell back is processed, it takes the time immediately out of my bank, and then it also allows me, or allows a administrator to go in and run a report to see how much time was sold back. So that could be reported to payroll. It's also possible to have that information captured as part of a payroll export. So if you're exporting to your payroll company and they want that information on the export, that can be entered there as well. Okay, so that's processing time sellback by the user through the web. So it's pretty simple, but I will unmute the mics again. If anybody has any questions on that or anything in this employee menu that we've covered. Okay, I'll mute the mics. We're going to move on from the employee menu over to the extra duty menu. So if your department is using extra duty billing, you can give your users access to certain functionality. And those items are extra duty sign-up list, which lets us see what jobs are available and sign up for them, and extra duty update, which lets us update the hours of a job that I may have worked. So we'll start with sign-up list. And this is a place I can go to see any extra duty jobs that have been entered into the system and posted online for sign-up. Okay, I can see the name of the job, the day of the week, the date, the start time, the end time, the number of hours, the vendor, and the location. I can also see right here if any of these jobs are eligible for immediate award, which would be a first come, first serve type scenario. So if your department uses that as a way to assign their jobs, either all jobs or maybe just their last minute jobs, then anything that's eligible for that immediate award will be marked with that red exclamation point. So if I wanted to sign up for that job, I put a check in the box. and I click Save. And you'll see down here, I can see the jobs that I have signed up for. If that job has already been filled but was left online to collect maybe people for backup, the status will remain requested. It will not change to be approved. Okay, I can sign up for some other items as well. If I was interested in maybe this job here and this job here and this one, I can select those like that, and I can click Save. Those all go down to the bottom here. My name is now on the list for all of those jobs. And now my name sits there waiting for someone to go in and choose who's going to get that job. And if it gets assigned to me, I will be notified via email. There is a function in the system where we can have these jobs we can run a process to have the jobs automatically assigned to people based on their preference or their priority. If your department is going to assign jobs that way, this lets me go in and identify a priority for jobs. So this is my first choice. Maybe this is my second choice. This is my third choice, and this is my fourth choice. And then I can update that priority. That's only necessary if your department is using that specific auto matchmaking feature. I do have the ability to take my name off the list for a job as well. So as long as I haven't been awarded this job yet, maybe something comes up and I now have plans for this day, I can put a check in the delete box and hit delete and take my name off the list for that job. Okay. So that's the extra duty sign-up list. That's how people go in and sign up for jobs that they are interested in working. Okay. Next thing that I want to show you is extra duty update. And this is a screen that allows me to go in and look for jobs that I may have worked already and update my hours. So if I push this back a little bit here, okay, so here's a job that I found, that I worked. Now it was scheduled for these hours. Now maybe I have to go in and change those hours. Maybe the times were different. I can click on the little arrow here, and that will load all of our information up in this area here. So maybe this job ran late, okay, and I had to stay until 9 o'clock. I can update that time and hit update. That'll tell us there that the update has been submitted. That will change my hours for that job, and it will also notify the person that was identified as the extra duty billing coordinator and let them know that I went in and I changed the times on a job that I worked. This feature only works if the job has not been invoiced. If I try to update the hours on a job that's been invoiced, the system will tell me that it can't process that update because the job has been invoiced, and it will advise me to reach out to an extra duty billing coordinator to see about maybe we need to delete that invoice and update the information and then recreate it and send it to the customer to notify them that the price of the job has changed. Okay, so those are the two options that you'll have on the web for extra duty. I'll go ahead and unmute the mics. Does anybody have any questions about either signing up for extra duty jobs or updating a job that's been worked? Okay, I got a question that came in on the chat. Will users be able to see others who have signed up? This extra duty sign up really only allots for the employee to see their own sign up. So if I go here to the sign up list, normal security settings say that we give the employee access to only themselves, and they can see what they signed up for, and they can sign up for things. It is technically possible with security that we could give access to let me see other people, but with that would be the ability for me to sign up for jobs for other people, which I don't know that we would want to give that ability out. So generally speaking, no, you can only see the jobs that you are signed up for. Any other questions about extra duty sign up or extra duty update? Okay, I'll go ahead and mute the microphones again. Next thing we'll look at is the ability to review your timesheet. We can give employees access under timesheets and payroll to an item called review payroll. And this lets me go in and see the most recent timesheet that has been created for me. Okay, it's got the dates of this pay period, shows me when I worked, when I was on my regular days off, when I took time off. We've also got a section down here in details that shows my time off and overtime entries. And we have some summaries down here, a summary of all the different types of time that I took and how many hours it was total, how many hours I was scheduled for this week, how many hours I worked, and how many hours of overtime I had. Plus anything that was found from a prior period. Whenever we run payroll, the system is always looking for items in the past that were not paid yet, either because they were entered late or maybe they weren't approved by the time the payroll was run for that pay period. So it's always looking back to catch those items that may not have been paid yet, and those items would be shown down here. So I can review my timesheet from this page here. I also have the option to sign my timesheet from here. Signing timesheets is not required. We don't need that as part of payroll. It's just an option that's there. If you want your employees to sign their timesheets, they'll be able to click this button right here. Right now, we're not in a current pay period, so the signed timesheet option is grayed out. I'm just viewing my timesheet from the prior pay period. But if the pay period was still open, I would be able to click the sign button and sign that timesheet. And that would use an electronic signature consisting of a date and timestamp along with my user ID. I always have the option to print the timesheet that I'm currently looking at. So whether this is my timesheet from last pay period or the current pay period, I always have the option to print that out if I want to keep a record for myself. Okay, so that is review payroll. And the last thing I'll talk about are reports. The one main report that we have here is called the Employee Statistical Report. This is a report that gives me a bunch of information all in one place. So it's for me, it's got my time balances. It's got my time off entries. It's got my overtime entries. My administrative days log, any time that's been added to or subtracted from my bank. My work trends, what days do I tend to work, what days do I tend to take off, what days do I tend to work overtime. Schools, if I've been assigned to any training through the training module, I'll be able to see the information about the school I attended, including the dates, and if there was a certification associated with it and when that expires. Extra duty will let me see any extra duty jobs I've been assigned to. Date, vendor, description, location, start, end time, number of hours. Court has to do with our court alert module. If you're using that and I've been assigned to any court, I'll see that there. And then finally, time sellback. If your department uses time sellback, either by allowing the user to go in on the web and sell back some of their time, or even if it's something that's just processed for them by a payroll person or an administrator, maybe once a year or something like that. Either way, that information will show in this area here. The type of time I sold back, how much, the date, and who processed it. Okay, so from that one report, I can get a lot of information, a lot of different things I can view. I do have the ability to change the dates up here. The dates are going to default to the current schedule dates, but that can be changed if I wanted to look back and see, how much time did I use last year, or what days did I take off, what extra duty jobs did I work last year. I can view all that stuff there. Beyond that, there are other reports that can be made available on the web. A large number of the reports from the main program that you may have seen in there before are being added to the web, and with security, we can make those available to your users. The Employee Statistical Report is the big one because it covers a whole bunch of things all in one place, but other reports can be made available as well. Okay, and beyond that, we have a help and training option here that opens up our web portal. I'm sorry, our support portal. Goes right to that page there, and from here you can look for different help articles and things like that. You can search by the name of screens and so on, and find different articles and videos available there. Not sure why it hasn't loaded up yet. Well, you'd be able to go there and view those items there. It comes up as a separate tab, so you can flip back and forth between an article and whatever you're trying to do on the page here. And of course, log out will log you out of the page. Okay. I'll go ahead and I'll unmute the microphones. Does anybody have any questions about reviewing timesheets or reports on the web? Yes, Tom.
Hey, Rob. Could you just go over real quick? How do you view the timesheets that you're in the current pay period with again?
Sure. So that's under timesheets and payroll, and review payroll. And this is going to load up whatever the most recent timesheet is by default. So right now the pay period is not opened, like it says here. It's not been started. The most recent prior timesheet is 111 through 124. For anybody who sat in on yesterday's payroll training, that's the payroll period that we ran and we closed. So what I see here is really controlled by what's going on with payroll. Now, we ran that payroll period yesterday and we closed it, which is why I can only view, I can't sign the timesheet. But if we left it open, if we hadn't closed it out yet, I could come in here and click the Sign Timesheet button to put my signature on it. It's not really something where you can choose what you view. It's really just either the timesheet for the current active pay period or the one just prior if there's not one started.
Okay, because I think now under the current portal you can't do that, correct? You can only look at the previous one. So this is a new option then, I guess.
Well, I believe with the other portal, you can only look at it if the pay period is currently open. I think when the pay period is closed, it kind of shuts that down and displays nothing instead of the one just prior to it, I believe. But so it might be slightly different than it is now. But instead of us just giving you a blank page, we're looking back at what the last timesheet was if there's not a current one for the current pay period.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions about timesheets or reports? Okay. Or questions about anything that we've covered today? Any of the schedule views, any items in the employee menu? Okay. Well, if there's no questions at the moment about this stuff, I will take a look back at Mike's question about how open shifts are created. And I will go over a little bit about that. Anybody is welcome to stay and watch that if they're interested. And if, we will have some more time for more questions if anybody thinks of them after I cover this little portion about creating an open shift. Okay, so to create an open shift, I can do that from the main program. Let me just go ahead and open that up and bring that over to my display screen. I'll mute the mics again. There we go. All right, so let me get the main program brought over here. Okay, so I can set up an open shift in the main program by going to Supervisor Zone. And we have an option here under Schedule for Add Update Open Shifts. And this is where we create these open shifts that people can then sign up for. So to set one of these up, first thing I do is I select the shift. What shift do we have an opening on? So I have a list of all the different shifts here. I can choose whatever would apply. Maybe it's an open shift on Squad 2. The next thing we pick is our overtime skill set. What type of person are we looking for, or what type of skill does someone have to be assigned to in order to sign up for this overtime? So these are all created by your department for the different types of things you might need them for. So let's say we just need somebody who is in patrol, and anybody who's in patrol now can sign up for this open shift. Over here, we can select a date or a date range. I can go in and I can say that we need somebody just for February 3rd, if I want. Or I can set a date range. I could say that we need somebody for the 3rd through the 6th on this shift. And then here where it says number needed, that's where we can enter the specific numbers for specific days of the week. So we're talking about Wednesday through Saturday here, so I can ignore Monday and Tuesday. Now maybe we need one person on Wednesday, 2 on Friday, and 1 on Saturday. This lets me set those to have different number needed for each day. Okay, next thing we have here is our times. So these are going to default to the hours of that shift that I picked. But if I don't need somebody for the whole shift, that's fine too. I can adjust the hours here. Job is optional. I can choose from the list of jobs that we have in the system if I want to associate that with this open shift. CFS and reference number are optional. You can put something in there if you need to. But I do need to select a reason text. I'm sorry, a reason code. What is the reason for this overtime? Well, maybe it's because of staffing. Reason text here, I have an optional free entry field where I can type a little information about why we have this open shift. But not required, it's totally optional. And last thing we have over here is a checkbox for part-time only. That lets us narrow down the people that can sign up for this open shift to only the people who have the part-time checkbox marked in their employee profile. And that's used sometimes if, I don't know, we have certain positions that we only want to fill with part-timers, or maybe we want to give them a first crack at it. Let the part-timers sign up for it first, and if they don't take it, then then maybe we'll open it up to everybody. So if that applies here, you can mark that box, but it's, of course, not required. So once I've got these couple of pieces of information in here, my shift, my skill, my dates, the number needed, my hours, and my reason for the overtime, I'm going to come up to the top here and click Save. And that successfully created 3 entries, one for Wednesday, one for Friday, one for Saturday. I can hit OK. Those entries get added to this area down here. So I can see them listed there. See the date, the shift, the times, hours, group, reason text, number needed, how many have been awarded, how many have signed up, how many are open still. In addition to adding new entries here, I can also edit or update these ones that I've already created. I can go into this one here, and I can change the number of people if that's not right. Or I can delete it. If we no longer need someone here on 2/6, I can highlight it and click delete it. The other thing you can do from here is you can see if anybody has signed up for an open shift. When you click on it, their names will be listed here. And let's say that somebody signed up for the shift and they said that they no longer could do it or that they didn't want it anymore. You can come in here and delete the fact that they were signed up for that shift. So take them off the list. Okay, so that's how you would create those open shifts that people would sign up for. This screen is now part of the new features on the web. So supervisors can create these screens from the web using, or create these shifts from the web using a very similar screen to this one. We'll cover that in this afternoon's supervisor training. So like I said, we went through it on the main program here. If you want to see it again on the web, feel free to join this afternoon's training. Question coming through on the chat, is there a way to automate the process of creating an open shift, perhaps from the minimum staffing requirement? I am not sure about that, Mike. Let me check on that for you, and I can get back to you on that one. I'm not 100% sure if there's a way that we could do that. Okay, so that's the process of creating the open shifts. Once again, I'm going to unmute the microphones. If anybody has any questions about what I just covered about setting up the open shifts or any of the items we spoke about before, the user items on the web, now would be a great time to ask. Okay. If there are no more questions, then that about covers all of the items that we were going to look at in this morning's session. Again, this afternoon will be a look at supervisor functions through the web. So we'll be covering some of the same items like schedule views, but we'll be covering new items as well, like approving time off, approving overtime, creating open shifts and awarding them, things along those lines. So feel free to join that session as well. I will leave this session open for about another 5 minutes. If anybody comes up with any questions, I'll be happy to ask them. Otherwise, if not, then we'll just close the session and look forward to seeing you in future sessions. Okay, everyone, there doesn't seem to be any additional questions, so I will go ahead and close down the session. Thanks again for your time.